with a minute. Seems like they all lost. None of them are on the scene. Seems like they died off. They extinct, but my dream is the rise of we chasing the prize of the king.
Hey guys, Bill Clark here from the Iron Lotus Society. I just wanted to do a small informational video with regards to improving braking technique for novices. And you don't have to be a novice. You can actually be at an intermediate or advanced level stage, and maybe you've noticed that your braking ability seems to have come down just a bit. Maybe you're not braking as consistently as you'd like, or maybe even your stack seems to be reducing in the number of blocks that you can effectively brake on a consistent basis. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with anatomy and physics, the way we're hitting the block. So I want to share with you just one little tip that helped me improve my braking dramatically, really help power transliteration throughout the brakes, and will help protect your hand a little bit from that pain and damage you feel whenever you're hitting the blocks, even when you miss the brake. So I just want to share this with you today, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about the anatomy and physics of the faulty brake or the missed brake, and the pain you feel in your hand and how it relates to your braking technique. So I want to share this with you guys today. Please try it out and let me know in the comments what you think and how it worked for you. Okay guys, now some of you might have been braking for a while, and some of you are probably beginning braking. And we all have our different styles of braking methods and the way we like to hit and the way we like to draw our hand up, whether it's a big fast whip or whether it's a long slow overhead with a big downward strike, or whether or not you're just trying to even finesse the block to get it to brake with a little less motion and the same power. Basically what I want to talk about is the most effective way to hit the block, which is going to be flat-handed. And I know what you're thinking. No matter how you brake right now, you think, hey, I do hit flat-handed. Well, some indicators that you may not be hitting flat-handed are the following. If you do a big raise overhead and drop, the first part of your hand that is going to hit is going to be your palm heel, and mostly this meaty part underneath the thumb. If you're like me and iron palm has really developed this portion of your hand, it's much bigger than the rest of the palm and actually sticks out a little bit. So the big overhead is fine, but the problem is when you twist down, there's a point where the hand must make contact with the brick, not flat. This keeps the elbow up and keeps more of a pushing effect. Now you can brake like this effectively in even big stacks, because I have for a long time. But it's painful, and over time it can do damage that will basically prevent you from braking in the future, especially mentally, because you'll not want to wince at the pain of hitting that bone and meat on this side of your thumb. The fast whip, the biggest problem with the fast whip is the same thing. Even if you keep the elbow down, this under part of your palm right here towards your wrist is what's taking all of the impact. And if you've ever had a bad hit, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Shoots the pain up into your forearm. Maybe your forearm gets stiff for a couple days after some bad breaks, or after some missed breaks doing that whip, and you have no comfort in your hand, and maybe you can't even train depending on your level of conditioning. So those two striking methods I do not feel are the most effective for hitting the block and transliterating all your power. Now they may be the most comfortable for you, but that does not mean they're the most effective. So what we've got to do is, if we want effective brakes, we've got to retrain our body. Just like we do with the iron palm conditioning. We condition the bones, we condition the skin and the muscles. Now, to effectively hit flat-handed, it is best not to be drawn up this way when you hit the top. I know that's probably contrary to everything you've ever heard, but I promise you this jutting motion and this jing here that you're creating by doing this whip is what's driving your wrist into the block and not your hand. Your jing on an iron palm strike does not come from your wrist or your elbow. I repeat, your jing or power on an iron palm strike does not come from your wrist or your elbow. It comes from your shoulder. Okay? So, the best thing you can do for yourself is to get a stance that is low enough where the block is about your navel height or a little lower. Okay? You want to keep the elbow bent and down. You do not want to press in and have your elbow straight or up like this, because it's going to put a lot of stress on your forearm. Okay. The next thing you need to do is make sure that when you're drawing up with the shoulder and not with the elbow in hand. You see the difference? This is a shoulder draw, okay, and this is with the elbow in the hand. Okay, this is all for show and it doesn't really work effectively. This is for effectiveness and is really going to transliterate that power through the block. Okay, and you can actually see if I wind up, hit the block, that's the power I'm going to hit it with. What you're seeing right there. Not breaking. I would have to hit it a lot harder in order to do one of those styles of breaks. It's a good hit, and you can hear it. But I'm not going to use more power than I have to. We're looking for effectiveness, not power. Okay? So we don't want to power through. We want power coming from effective body motion and jing, not from just raw striking power with the muscle strength. That's not what's going to break the blocks when you get to higher stacks. Some of you advanced practitioners understand. So we're going to get ready in front of the block, and however you want to do it is fine. Whether you want to do a forward stance or a horse stance, it makes no difference. I like a forward stance just because it gives me just a little bit more stability. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get ready. I'm going to have my hips loose. My whole body is going to work together as a unit, and I'm going to lift my shoulder and hit the block. Okay? And there you have it. Hitting flat-handed means that you don't have to use as much power to break the block as if you have to push through just a little bit. You know, guys, a thought occurs to me that not all of you may be breaking these 2x8x16 slabs, and you may not even have access to them in some areas. So what if you're breaking like a red brick, like a Holland paver, or something similar? How do you use this technique to make sure you break the block without damaging your wrist? Now, some people like to break sideways like this across the brick. I personally do not prefer to do that, simply because unless you hit it perfect every time, when you miss, you're gonna hurt your forearm and your wrist. So I actually like to break these vertically because it gives a little bit more space for my hand and allows me to hit the block a little harder. So I like to break vertically, and basically we're going to do the exact same thing here. We're not going to change anything. We're just going to line up the same way we would with the block, and we're just going to lift from the shoulder and pop it flat-handed. The same concept that we're using, we're going to use on this block to break it. Okay? Okay, guys, so let's go ahead and break this brick. Now let's look. It's real. It's not cracked anywhere. Okay? Just set between the supports here. Now on these smaller bricks, guys, listen. If you're not used to breaking them, go ahead and use a little extra protection for your hand. It's fine. It's really not a big deal. Now don't layer up some bath towel, but if that's all you have like a little towel. All I have today is just this baby towel for my daughter. None of our wash rags were clean today except my little thin napkin there. So basically I'm going to just protect my hand a little, just a single layer. Don't drape a bunch over there, guys. Don't make a huge pad for yourself. Remember, this is just practice, okay? We don't want to get used to breaking with a huge pad. And not to mention that actually when you pad it up too much, it actually makes the brick harder to break. So just going to put our normal napkin over it. A little extra padding under there just to help protect my hand. I don't really break the small bricks that much. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing we did with the gray block on the red block. I like to hit them vertically because it gives more space for my hand. If you like to hit them across, go ahead, but I don't suggest it because wrong hits can really damage the hand. So anyway, we're going to break it long ways, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Lower my hips, just get nice and ready, nice and loose, nice and relaxed, and I'm going to try and whip the shoulder, hit this thing flat-handed, and break it, okay? And there you have it. It took me 2 hits, but you know, I'm really not used to breaking these things. So as you can see, there's the brick. Okay, and basically you just want to use the exact same technique. It doesn't change just because the medium changes. The only exception to that is a coconut. But as far as bricks go, hitting them is pretty much the same animal. You just have different strengths, whether the blocks are wet or not, and how big the stack is. And of course, whether or not you use spacers. Please don't use spacers, guys. Just break the bricks in a solid stack, okay? You're really hurting yourself if you do with the spacers, because you're not breaking two with spacers is not like breaking two unspaced, okay? So just want to let you know, please don't use spacers if you can. And if you got to use less material, that's fine. You're not out here to impress anybody. It's you versus yourself, okay? So there's my tips for helping improve your braking power, and should be able to work on pretty much any brick medium. So go ahead and give it a shot. Make sure you're safe. Don't do anything that's going to injure yourself, and you do it at your own discretion, but give it a shot and let me know what you think.
Yeah, let the process begin. Separate the boys from the men.